His three huge heads glared at Zhang Yi, then he suddenly dove into the sea. The sea was his home. As a member of the noble dragon clan, he could come and go as he pleased, whether in the sky, underground, or in the sea. He was certain that Zhang Yi would not dare to follow him underwater. Zhang Yi sighed. You came here boasting loudly, but now you're running away? Li Fengxian, you really are a waste of space. You deserve to have all your people killed, and you deserve to end up like this. The voice was deliberately amplified through a loudspeaker so that the Sky Dragon King could hear it clearly. The Sky Dragon King's teeth were grinding, but he didn't fall for the trick. A gentleman's revenge can wait 10 years. Just you wait, I'll make sure Tianhai City never has a moment of peace. Zhang Yi looked down at the sea beneath him, where a huge shadow hundreds of meters long loomed oppressively. Did I say you could leave? In the next instant, he teleported 3,000 meters away and entered the sea. Thanks to his previous voyage, he had mastered the technique of fighting under the sea using dimensional space. No matter how fast the Sky Dragon King was, he couldn't outrun Zhang Yi, who could shuffle through space. Soon, Zhang Yi caught up with the Sky Dragon King. He silently raised the Thunderstrike in his hand. The Sky Dragon King's pupils suddenly contracted. Are you done yet, you bastard? If Zhang Yi really wanted to fight him to the death, that would be fine, but what Zhang Yi was doing now was like someone repeatedly stabbing him with a needle. Although it wasn't fatal, it really hurt. Moreover, he couldn't dodge the needles. Zhang Yi, were you Lady Rong in your previous life? What the Sky Dragon King didn't expect was that Zhang Yi could enter the water, and that he was even faster than him. That's right, Zhang Yi wasn't good at swimming, but the problem was that he could teleport. Sky Dragon King, why are you running? Are you that cowardly? You might as well change your name to Runaway King. Weren't you so cocky at the beginning? Why are you so cowardly now? You useless piece of trash, I thought you were so great. Zhang Yi attacked while humiliating the Sky Dragon King. As a pirate king, when had the Sky Dragon King ever been treated like this? Faced with Zhang Yi's humiliation, he couldn't help but turn around and fire a high-powered particle cannon. But to Zhang Yi, it was like an itch, and it couldn't break through his defense. No matter how fast he swam, he couldn't escape Zhang Yi's attacks. The Sky Dragon King was really getting anxious and started swimming deeper into the sea. Zhang Yi, don't chase me anymore. Otherwise, you'll encounter unimaginable horrors in the deep sea. The Sky Dragon King threatened fiercely, but he was weak inside. In fact, he had no idea what existed in the deep sea. It was only out of his instinct as a sea creature that he could sense that there must be something in the endless depths that made even him fear from the bottom of his soul. Zhang Yi did not answer. If he let the Sky Dragon King go today, then Tianhai City would never have peace again. He raised Thunderstrike with both hands and changed the bullets once again. The dark power of the void continuously surged behind him, like a strange demon released from the abyss. Black tentacles spread to Zhang Yi's body, then continuously poured into Thunderstrike along his arms. A mighty force began to slowly gather. This was the most powerful attack Zhang Yi currently possessed, the power of the void. The Sky Dragon King sensed the terror of this power, his pupils suddenly contracted, and he began to swim faster toward the deep sea. After a few seconds of charging, Zhang Yi had turned into a terrifying black hole in the deep sea. The extremely dark power of the void could devour everything around it. The Sky Dragon King couldn't help but look back, only to see a circular area several kilometers wide behind him, like a solar eclipse, with light hovering outside this area, unable to penetrate. Halberd of Doom. A terrifying force like a void snake god gushed out from the muzzle of Thunderstrike. Even from the outside, it was hard to imagine that such a huge and terrifying thing could come out of a gun that was only 2 meters long. A dark battle spear hundreds of meters long appeared silently, and in an instant, the surrounding seawater was turned into nothingness. The Sky Dragon King felt a deadly fear, but just as he couldn't dodge Zhang Yi's holy silver bullet, he couldn't predict the trajectory of this attack. What should he do? What should he do? What should he do? The Sky Dragon King's mind was now completely overwhelmed by fear. He was at a loss and had no idea how to deal with this situation. But the dark battle spear didn't give him any time to think. It silently cleared a large area in the deep sea and came up behind him. The Sky Dragon King turned around and burst out with all his strength. The three heads simultaneously spewed out high-energy particle beams. Earthquake. Tidal wave. Thunderstorm. The three surging forces converged into one, and the colorful three-colored light pillars collided violently with the black battle spear. There was no terrifying shock wave, only the annihilation of the void force against the high-energy particle beams. The dark battle spears were like black holes, silently devouring everything in sight. By the time the black battle spears reached the Sky Dragon King, half of their power had been neutralized, but they still collided with his body with unyielding force. The Sky Dragon King's armor, dark as steel tempered 100 times, shattered inch by inch, exposing his flesh and bones. Puff! 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 Large chunks of flesh exploded in the deep sea, staining the entire sea red. The Sky Dragon King's body was violently thrown away, and he was seriously injured by the blow. The Sky Dragon King endured the intense pain and suddenly felt a distinct discomfort in his body. His speed had just slowed down. "You! What did you do to me?" He roared at Zhang Yi in anger. Zhang Yi remained silent, turned around, took a piece of cake from the dimensional space, and stuffed it into his mouth. After Yang Xia's abilities were enhanced, the supernatural powers she could replenish for him also increased. But now, Zhang Yi's appetite had also increased. After every battle, he needed to eat a lot. The replenishment of supernatural powers was very strange. After every battle, his body would slowly recover its strength, but Zhang Yi didn't know where this strength came from. However, the hunger in his stomach was very real, and he had to eat a lot. If it weren't for the large amount of supplies his family had stockpiled and the large amount of supplies he had obtained from the Jiangnan region, he would have been able to eat the entire city of Tianhai City empty in no time. The Sky Dragon King's body showed obvious signs of abnormality. That was because the bullets Zhang Yi fired were not filled with ordinary poison, but nerve poison. Zhang Yi didn't expect to kill the Sky Dragon King with bullets. However, nerve poison spreads through the blood, and during the fierce battle between the two, it infected the Sky Dragon King's entire body. It paralyzed his body and made it difficult for him to move. This blow was also very exhausting for Zhang Yi. However, it was clearly very successful, because the Sky Dragon King had been seriously injured. However, Epsilon-level mutants, especially divine beasts like the Sky Dragon King, had extremely tenacious vitality. Even though he looked covered in wounds, none of them were fatal. He swung his tail and swam rapidly into the deep sea. How could Zhang Yi let him get away? Although I'm not strong in terms of attack power, when it comes to sticking to someone, if I'm second in the world, no one dares to be first. Being targeted by a space ability mutant was not a pleasant feeling. Zhang Yi quickly darted past and soon arrived in front of the Sky Dragon King. The Sky Dragon King suddenly turned around and opened the giant mouth of one of his heads and lunged at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi instantly opened the dimensional gate, and the dragon head disappeared into it. However, the Sky Dragon King was also prepared for Zhang Yi's move. As long as his entire body did not disappear into the dimensional space, Zhang Yi was unable to actively absorb living creatures. Therefore, the Sky Dragon King quickly withdrew and immediately lashed his tail at Zhang Yi's back. However, this move was also blocked by the dimensional gate. "I told you, your attacks are useless against me." Zhang Yi had already gauged the Sky Dragon King's strength. According to the ability index, he was probably at the 11,000 to 12,000 level. But now, Zhang Yi had completely digested the origin of Lost Soul and reached the 14,000 level. No matter how powerful the Sky Dragon King's attack was, he couldn't overcome the gap between them. The Sky Dragon King gritted his teeth and continued to flee into the deep sea. Zhang Yi kept firing, paralyzing it with his nerve speed while eating large amounts of food to replenish his supernatural powers. Then, the second halberd of doom was ready. The Sky Dragon King saw through Zhang Yi's attack, but seeing through it didn't mean he could counter it. Unsurprisingly, he was once again hit hard by this move, which was almost like a headlock. The deep sea was filled with blood mist, and the surrounding area was already surrounded by terrifying and distorted giant mutant sea beasts. However, they were afraid of Zhang Yi and the Sky Dragon King's imposing presence and dared not approach. However, as soon as the Sky Dragon King showed the slightest sign of fatigue, they would rush forward and devour his flesh and blood. The flesh and blood of an Epsilon-level creature was the best food for them, and it had a deadly attraction that came from the depths of their souls. However, the Sky Dragon King was still alive, but the large amount of neurotoxin in his body made him move even slower. Cough. Zhang Yi, you can't kill me, you can't kill me. The Sky Dragon King roared angrily. Zhang Yi sighed lightly. At a time like this, what are you trying to prove? The Sky Dragon King's speed slowed down completely. Zhang Yi finally came close to him. Within a radius of 3 kilometers, this was Zhang Yi's everything under heaven domain. Countless doors opened up in this area, completely blocking all of the Sky Dragon King's escape routes. He was not Black Tortoise, nor was he Cardalus, so he couldn't break through Zhang Yi's dimensional gate. Now, he was just a loach trapped in a mud cage. Zhang Yi. Even if I die, you will pay the price. The Sky Dragon King roared furiously, covered in blood, but the high-energy particle beams from his 3 heads became more intense than ever. He didn't expect Zhang Yi to be so powerful, but he didn't come here with the intention of surviving. As long as he could take revenge on Zhang Yi, that was enough for him. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will break through your defense. This is the deep sea. Imagine the pain of being crushed by hundreds of millions of tons of seawater in an instant. The Sky Dragon King was really going to fight for his life. He even gave up all his defenses and concentrated all his strength to launch the most powerful attack on Zhang Yi. Just at this moment, Zhang Yi said, "You can attack." A delicate head suddenly poked out from the shadows behind him. Yang Xinxin suddenly appeared here, and behind her, the Angel of Desire slowly emerged, enveloping her and Zhang Yi in a holy light. The Angel of Desire immediately drew her bow and aimed at the Sky Dragon King, who was fighting for his life. Cupid's arrow. Yang Xinxin's sudden appearance startled the Sky Dragon King, but he paid no attention to the little girl. This was because he did not sense any powerful energy coming from Yang Xinxin. As long as it was an Epsilon, no one could threaten his life. He didn't even take the red arrow that was suddenly shot at him seriously. Apart from Zhang Yi, no one could break through his defense. All of the Sky Dragon King's gaze and hatred were focused on Zhang Yi. Just as he was about to unleash his most powerful attack, the red arrow silently flew through the sea and pierced his body. The Sky Dragon King's body trembled violently, and his powerful energy suddenly disappeared. A strange feeling suddenly filled his heart. When he looked at the delicate, doll-like girl again, he felt an overwhelming love for her, even to the point of being willing to die for her. This is... The Sky Dragon King's eyes began to glaze over, and he struggled painfully to shake off this strange feeling. Yang Xinxin was a little surprised. "Brother, his willpower is very strong. I don't think I can control him for much longer." Zhang Yi hurriedly said, "Make him destroy himself." Yang Xinxin immediately said, "Sky Dragon King, destroy yourself." The Sky Dragon King's eyes revealed a look of immense pain and struggle. His mind was crystal clear at this moment. He knew what had been done to him, but even though he knew everything, he couldn't break free from the shackles of this rules category ability. Love spread wildly in his heart like a poison that corroded his bones. At this moment, the beautiful girl in front of him was everything in his life. Even if she ordered him to die immediately, he would willingly do so as long as he could exchange it for a moment of her joy. Tears of pain flowed from the Sky Dragon King's eyes, a cry of despair at being unable to escape his fate. Roar! He roared angrily in the endless depths of the sea. Zhang Yi! I hate you! Ha ha ha! Do you think that killing me will end everything? No, it won't. Sooner or later, you will end up just like me. This is your destiny. You have been marked. You can't escape. They will definitely catch you, and you will die a more miserable death than me. Zhang Yi's heart suddenly sank. He didn't know what the Sky Dragon King meant, but vaguely, images of the Star Island abyss and the powerful black-armored monster flashed through his mind. At this moment, the head in the middle of the Sky Dragon King suddenly bit the head on the left, and the head on the right bit the head in the middle, and so on, until all three heads were biting each other. Blood splattered in the deep sea, staining a large area of the sea red. The Sky Dragon King's vitality was too strong. Even with his neck bitten through and almost all of his blood drained out, it took a long time for him to finally die. Zhang Yi was shocked. If he hadn't made preparations in advance and relied on the power of Spirit Guardian and Yang Xinxin, even if he had been able to kill the Sky Dragon King today, it would have taken a lot of time and even come at a certain cost. Epsilon-level mutants were on a completely different level of life and could be called extraordinary. They were really too difficult to kill. After the Sky Dragon King's death, his huge body returned to human form. Zhang Yi reached out and put his corpse into the dimensional space. Just at that moment, he suddenly felt a chill on his back. In the endless dark ocean, it was as if something was watching him from the shadows. Zhang Yi couldn't see what it was, but the bone-chilling cold was definitely real. He even felt that there was more than one pair of eyes watching him. Zhang Yi thought to himself, sure enough, in the Great Mutation era, the giant beasts that exist in the deep sea will only become more terrifying than land creatures. Without hesitation, he immediately hid Yang Xinxin in the shadow space, then activated his space shuffle ability to quickly leave the deep sea. It wasn't until he left that the feeling of being watched slowly disappeared. Zhang Yi returned to Tianhai City. At this time, the tide was slowly receding, but nearly a quarter of the land was still submerged by the waves. A thick layer of ice had formed on the ground, reflecting a faint blue light under the night sky. Zhang Yi had killed the Sky Dragon King, which should have been a cause for celebration. However, the Sky Dragon King's last words echoed in Zhang Yi's mind. He frowned and looked back at the vast and awe-inspiring ocean, and his mood could no longer be light-hearted. Zhang Yi returned to the shelter. Spirit Guardian immediately came out of shadow space, followed by Yang Xinxin. Having Spirit Guardian, a humanoid space, was extremely convenient. She gave Zhang Yi an extra new skill, Yang Xinxin. Not only could she help him analyze the battle situation during combat, but she could also use the Angel of Desire's ability to help Zhang Yi win at certain times. The Rules category ability was a very unpredictable ability. Within its domain, it could sometimes even exert strength beyond its level. Even a mutant like the Sky Dragon King, who had reached the Epsilon level, could be affected. However, relatively speaking, if the conditions for triggering the ability were not met, then the Rules category ability user would become extremely weak. In short, it was a double-edged sword. The appearance of Spirit Guardian formed a good bond and perfectly solved Yang Xinxin's ability deficiency. As long as her host was safe, she could hide in the shadow of her host. Zhang Yi's main strength was defense, so it was basically impossible to kill him, which meant that the safety of Spirit Guardian and Yang Xinxin was absolutely guaranteed. It was a perfect closed loop. Everyone in the house gathered around to ask Zhang Yi how the battle had gone. Everything that had happened today had shocked them greatly. They had never felt the oppressive power of an Epsilon-level mutant so close up before. That power, which could trigger a tsunami and flood a city, was deeply frightening. Zhang Yi hugged Zhou Qi and Yang Xia and smiled gently, "It's okay now. I've killed that guy." Everyone breathed a long sigh of relief. Fatty Su held his fat face and sighed, "It's a good thing you're so wise, boss, and discovered their plot early. Otherwise, I can't even imagine what the outcome would have been." Liang Yu and the others frowned and couldn't be happy after hearing Fatty Su's words. This world was still full of danger. Especially now that Zhang Yi was becoming more and more powerful, the enemies they had to face were also becoming stronger. Of course, this was not meant to blame Zhang Yi, but rather to express their concerns for the future. After the apocalypse, the weak could only live from day to day, and many died in circumstances they couldn't understand at all. At least they still had a chance to protect themselves. Zhang Yi asked everyone to sit down in the living room, and Yang Xia made hot drinks for everyone. After a terrifying night, a cup of hot drink calmed everyone's emotions considerably. We still need to strengthen the shelter's defenses in the future. You must not slack off in your practice of supernatural abilities. These abilities will deteriorate if not used, and require deep personal exploration to be developed to their fullest potential. Zhang Yi said this and glanced coldly at Fatty Su, especially you, Fatty Su. You're the laziest one here. Fatty Su swallowed hard and nodded vigorously. Don't worry, boss, I'll listen to you and train hard. Zhang Yi snorted coldly, cut the crap, you're just all hot and bothered for 3 minutes. Uncle, you will have to train you properly in the future. Fatty Su was born in the year of the pig, so he had to be supervised, otherwise he would inevitably slack off before long. If you don't work hard in the future and hold everyone back, heh. Zhang Yi sneered, I'll send you to the Chaoyu base by the sea to peddle a generator. Fatty Su's face turned pale with fear, and he hurriedly said, Boss, please don't. I'll work hard, I won't hold everyone back. Zhang Yi wasn't joking with Fatty Su. He was, after all, a Delta-level mutant, and Zhang Yi had spent a lot of resources on him. In any case, he was a good fighter. If he continued to slack off in the future, it would be better to send him to Chaoyu base to supplement the fighting force and give him some good training. Yang Xinxin propped her chin up with one hand, raised one leg, and gently swung her foot in her brown leather shoes. But just doing that won't greatly improve the security of the shelter. Even if you're not here, we can handle mutants below Epsilon. But when faced with mutants above Epsilon, we're basically powerless. Zhang Yi rubbed his head, still confused by the Sky Dragon King's last words before he died. Karen, I'm going to have to ask you to take care of this. Use all the heavy weapons we got from Blizzard City to arm the sanctuary as quickly as possible. As for defense, the sanctuary's defenses are already at their maximum. I really can't think of any way to improve them. Zhang Yi spoke from the bottom of his heart. When the young Prince of Wang built this house, he was aiming for the standard of a doomsday fortress. It was said that it could block anything except a direct hit from an H-bomb. There were materials that were stronger than the building materials used, such as Edelman metal. However, even the Jiangnan region couldn't produce enough Edelman metal to build such a huge shelter. At this moment, Lu Karen hesitated slightly, but still slowly said, Brother Zhang Yi, I have an idea. Everyone's eyes fell on her, wondering what this genius mechanic wanted to say. Karen, if you have any ideas, just say it. Zhang Yi smiled encouragingly at Lu Karen. Lu Karen was greatly encouraged and sat up straight and said, Actually, ever since I absorbed the origin elves you gave me, I can clearly feel that the power of Divine Machinist has become stronger. She looked down at her hands. Due to spending all day in the workshop, her hands had long since developed thick calluses, but they were very dexterous and powerful. When I first awakened my ability, I only felt that I could manipulate the structure of matter. I could twist metal, analyze the structure of matter, and even melt materials with my bare hands. But now, I have a clearer and clearer feeling. My microscopic control over matter is becoming more and more precise. I can even reach the molecular level. As she spoke, as if afraid that everyone would not believe her, she reached out and picked up a water cup from the table. In the next moment, everyone saw a very magical scene. The delicate glass cup turned into a pile of fine grains of sand right before everyone's eyes, then scattered onto the coffee table. Zhang Yi already knew this. It was precisely because of this ability that she was able to modify guns for him and even study the genetic drug composition of Blizzard City without relying on large instruments. Lu Karen looked at Zhang Yi and said with burning eyes, I have a feeling that if my ability becomes stronger, perhaps I can break through to a deeper microscopic realm. When that time comes, I will definitely be able to research materials that are stronger than the current building materials. Zhang Yi's physics grades were not ideal. He only had a vague understanding of what Lu Karen was talking about. Although he could understand some of the technical terms, he didn't understand much else. However, he understood one thing. Karen, you mean that if your ability can be upgraded to a higher level, you can upgrade the building materials of the shelter to make it more resilient and even withstand the impact of epsilon-level mutants, right? Lou Karen was a little unsure of herself. I can try. Even if it can't withstand an epsilon-level impact, upgrading the shelter's defenses will definitely be no problem. Yang Xinqin understood what Lou Karen meant. She stared intently at Lou Karen. Karen, you mean that if your abilities become stronger, you might even be able to change the properties of matter? Lou Karen nodded. It's not impossible. She clenched her fists excitedly. If that's possible, then all the problems in this world can be perfectly solved. Zhang Yi somewhat understood what Lou Karen meant. He asked, you're not trying to tell me that you want to try to change the microscopic composition of matter and then redefine the existence of a thing? In the field of science, the smallest particle that can be observed so far is the quark. Quarks make up protons and neutrons, which in turn make up atoms. Simply put, all the basic particles of matter known in the world today are the same. If a person's supernatural ability can reach the microscopic realm, in theory, they can change the properties of a substance at will. Simply put, it's alchemy. Lou Karen's ability has now reached the molecular realm, and her ambition is to go one step further and try to reach the deeper microscopic realm. This idea is nothing short of crazy. Because once she really achieves it, there will be no shortage of materials in this world. Alchemy, turning water into gasoline, will really be possible. Zhang Yi's eyes flashed with excitement. He was moved by Lou Karen's ambition. Although he didn't know much about physics, he understood Lou Karen. She was a super genius, and since she wanted to do something, Zhang Yi would naturally support her. Science and technology were always the primary productive forces. It seemed that Lou Karen only knew how to study mechanics at home and couldn't directly participate in battle. But since she joined the shelter, Zhang Yi had relied on her support behind the scenes in every battle. Zhang Yi crossed his arms and looked at Lou Karen with a trusting gaze. Karen, if you want to do it, then go for it. I will support you unconditionally. I will help you improve your ability index in the shortest amount of time and make your abilities even stronger. Let's all see if you can create a miracle. Lou Karen bit her lip excitedly, her eyes sparkling with tears. It was a genius idea, or even a crazy idea. In the past, anyone in the scientific community would have jumped out to insult her for her fanciful ideas. However, this was a world that could not be measured by past scientific knowledge. It was an era of great mutation. Everything that had been considered absurd in the past now had the possibility of becoming reality. Brother, thank you. Lou Karen nodded and said, her eyes filled with indescribable emotions. Zhang Yi smiled and said, why are you thanking me? Come with me in a moment, I have something good for you. Just as he was speaking, Zhang Yi's communication device suddenly rang. He picked it up and saw that it was Zhu Jing calling. Zhang Yi immediately thought that the commotion here must have attracted the attention of the satellites, so it was only natural that Zhu Jing would notice. Not to mention Zhu Jing, even the East Sea region would probably be able to sense it. After all, it was a battle between two epsilon-level warriors. Zhang Yi glanced at Mu Yan, who immediately closed her mouth cautiously. Zhang Yi answered the call. Zhu Jing was wearing pajamas on the other end and seemed to have just woken up. Zhang Yi, what's going on in Tianhai City? Someone just reported that there's a lot of commotion there. Zhu Jing smiled and asked, are you in trouble? Do you need my help? Zhang Yi took a deep breath and said with a worried look on his face, it's a tsunami. A giant sea monster suddenly attacked Tianhai City for some unknown reason. But I've already driven it away. Zhang Yi's voice was filled with confusion, seemingly unable to understand why the sea beast would attack Tianhai City. He didn't tell Zhu Jing the truth. He still had many secrets about the Sky Dragon King that he didn't want anyone else to know about for the time being. Otherwise, the people above would definitely be curious about how the Sky Dragon King had survived and how he had been promoted to Epsilon. If the matter was investigated further, it would cause Zhang Yi a lot of trouble. Zhu Jing frowned and asked with a serious expression, could it be related to Star Island? Zhang Yi nodded, that's what I think too. That place must be hiding some big secret. I just didn't expect it to still be haunting me. By shifting the blame to the abyss of Star Island, neither Zhu Jing nor Li Guangxiao could continue the investigation, because that was beyond their capabilities. Zhu Jing pondered for a moment and said to Zhang Yi, "This is indeed a very big problem. If the coast is unsafe, you can move your family to Blizzard City to live." Zhang Yi smiled and said, "Thank you for your kindness, Commander Zhu, but we are used to living here and don't want to leave. Besides, with me here, these problems can be easily solved." Zhu Jing nodded and said, "All right, if you need anything, you can always contact headquarters. You must know that you are someone I am grooming for an important position." Zhang Yi smiled and nodded, laughing it off. He didn't care whether Zhu Jing believed him or not. After all, he had already killed the Sky Dragon King, and no one else would be able to investigate anything. After ending the call, Zhang Yi looked at Mu Yan. "Let's go. I should take you back." Mu Yan quietly clenched the cup in her hand. She didn't really want to go back. Although it was her first time at Zhang Yi's home, she felt very comfortable there. It had the warmth of home. It was unlike the cold and cruel Blizzard City. However, she still silently stood up from the sofa. "You did well this time." "I'll remember it," Zhang Yi said to her, then opened the dimensional gate. Mu Yan nodded. Zhang Yi said, "You are now a captain level. Although your strength is a little lacking, Blizzard City is in need of people, so they won't make an example of you. Next, perform well. If you do well, I can ask Zhu Jing to allow me to take you in." Mu Yan's eyes lit up, she looked up at Zhang Yi and nodded seriously. Zhang Yi sent Mu Yan back to Blizzard City, then returned to the shelter. The whole process only took a few minutes and didn't waste any time. Yang Xinxin took a sip of hot milk and said to Zhang Yi, "She's a very good support member. You can keep her. I need to observe her some more." Zhang Yi said indifferently, "Not just anyone can enter my sanctuary. Loyalty is always the first principle. Otherwise, lazy gluttons like Fatty Su would have been kicked out by Zhang Yi long ago." Yang Xinxin smiled slightly and said, "That's difficult to test. People who have experienced life and death in the apocalypse are particularly good at pretending." Zhang Yi shrugged, "It doesn't matter, as long as I need her, she can come and help at any time." He took a sip of coffee and smiled. "She knows very well that only by clinging to me can she continue to live. Otherwise, sooner or later, she would become Zhuyu's food." After the conversation ended, Yang Xinxin and Zhou Qir went to notify the 3 major bases, especially the Chaoyu base, that the disaster was over. They also arranged for people to rebuild the coastal defenses, as many ships had been destroyed by the tsunami. The other 2 bases needed to allocate manpower and supplies to provide support. Zhang Yi took Lu Karen to her studio. "Karen, I'll help you increase your power right now," Zhang Yi said. The origin elves and mutant origins on his body were almost used up. So now there was only one origin he could give to Lu Karen. The Sky Dragon King's corpse. Zhang Yi took out the Sky Dragon King's corpse. Lu Karen looked at him in shock and said, "Brother, isn't this the Sky Dragon King?" Zhang Yi nodded, "Try it and absorb as much as you can." "For me?" Lu Karen pointed to her face and asked in disbelief. Zhang Yi nodded. "For me right now, absorbing the Sky Dragon King's origin will only give me limited improvement. Besides, my current strength is already enough, so there's no rush to improve. But your strength is very important to me. I want you to become powerful quickly." It was like adding talent points. The Sky Dragon King's origin was a little stronger than the Lost Soul, but it could only increase Zhang Yi's ability index by 1,000 points at most. But judging from the situation in the entire sanctuary, his strength far exceeded that of the others. According to the theory of the wooden bucket effect, he needed to fill in other areas. The shelter was not stable enough, and he always felt uneasy. Moreover, the stronger Lu Karen became, the more powerful the weapons she could create for Zhang Yi, which was a combat indicator that was not reflected in the ability index. Zhang Yi placed his hands on Lu Karen's shoulders and encouraged her, "Brother believes you have great potential. Don't be afraid, come on, give it a try. Lu Karen was deeply moved. She didn't expect Zhang Yi to be willing to give her such a precious origin. This was something that everyone in the world dreamed of obtaining. Even Epsilon-level mutants would be willing to pay a huge price for it. But Zhang Yi gave it to her without hesitation. Lu Karen nodded vigorously, took a deep breath, and walked to the Sky Dragon King's corpse. Zhang Yi stood by and watched to prevent any accidents. Now, after Zhang Yi's intensive training, Lu Karen's supernatural abilities had reached around 7,000 points. He didn't know if there would be any accidents when she absorbed the Epsilon-level origin. Lu Karen placed her hand on the Sky Dragon King's head. Soon, a huge amount of energy surged into her body, rapidly strengthening her own power and, like the aging washing mirror technique, began to change the essence of her life. Epsilon, a mutant of this realm, had already undergone a leap in the level of life. The origin power in their bodies was the most precious evolutionary medicine for lower-level mutants. Lu Karen felt as if there was a fire burning in her body, and her face turned green and red. After just a few seconds, a look of pain appeared on her face. Brother, I. She couldn't even speak. Zhang Yi immediately stepped forward, severed her connection to the Sky Dragon King's corpse, and then put the Sky Dragon King's corpse away. Lu Karen couldn't withstand this enormous energy and collapsed on the ground, clutching her chest and gasping for air. Her skin turned bright red, every pore emitting white heat, and sweat drenched her entire body. Karen, how are you? Do you want me to call Kira over? Zhang Yi asked anxiously. Lu Karen turned her head to look at Zhang Yi. Although she looked a little tired, her eyes were incredibly bright. It's okay, brother. I feel full of energy right now. But this energy is too powerful, I need to digest it first. Zhang Yi had underestimated Epsilon's origin after all. With Lu Karen's talent and strength, it was impossible for her to completely absorb such a huge amount of energy. But even absorbing only a part of it was enough to greatly enhance her abilities. Seeing this, Zhang Yi frowned and said, I was careless and didn't consider the situation carefully. He reached out, picked up Lu Karen's body, and carried her off the ground. Let me take you back to your room to rest. This was the first time in her life that Lu Karen had been carried by a man, and the blush on her face seemed even more intense. Fortunately, her whole body was red at the moment, so it wasn't noticeable. She nodded weakly, but her hands involuntarily wrapped around Zhang Yi's neck. Zhang Yi carried Lu Karen back to her room. He then called Zhou Kir to check on Lu Karen. After Zhou Kir arrived, she carefully examined Lu Karen, then smiled and said to the two of them, Don't worry, she's in very good condition, and all her indicators are excellent. She may have overdid it a little and needs to rest for a while. Zhang Yi said to Lu Karen, Just concentrate on digesting this power for the next few days and don't think about anything else. Lu Karen nodded obediently. She closed her eyes and slowly felt that with the supernatural power growing stronger, her body had undergone some obvious changes. It seemed as if she could see her blood flowing through her veins, the red blood cells like bright red persimmon cakes, surging violently in the blood plasma. It was late at night, and after experiencing a fierce battle, Zhang Yi was feeling a little tired. The physical exhaustion was nothing, but the pressure that the Sky Dragon King had put on him was not small. Mutants at the Epsilon realm were indeed difficult to kill. Even though his ability index was far ahead of the Sky Dragon King, he still had to use Mu Yan and Yang Xinxin's abilities, and only killed him when the Sky Dragon King was determined to die. This showed just how terrifying mutants or mutant beasts at this realm were. Without his protection, how vulnerable would the three major bases and shelters in Tianhai City be? Zhang Yi washed his body with hot water and muttered, I must strengthen the forces around me. That night, after Zhou Kir's hard work, Zhang Yi's inner exhaustion was finally relieved, allowing him to completely relax. However, he did not forget what the Sky Dragon King had said before he died. Star Island. Mist Valley. The Abyss. The Black Armored Monster. These words lingered in his mind, refusing to fade away. A burst of noisy murmurs rang in his ears, like a kind of chaotic gibberish. Now, the only way to ensure that he and his companions would not suffer disaster in the apocalypse was to continuously improve his strength and enhance the defensive capabilities of the shelter. People always need a safe haven. The body is secondary, the soul is the most important thing. Zhang Yi had grown accustomed to the feeling of having family around him, and he couldn't imagine the pain he would experience if he lost them. So from the next day onwards, he began to supervise his companions at the shelter more strictly. Everyone had to exercise and do their best to familiarize themselves with and improve their supernatural abilities. As for Zhang Yi himself, he absorbed the remaining origin of the Sky Dragon King. Lu Karen didn't absorb much at all, in fact, most of it was absorbed by Zhang Yi. According to his calculations, once he completely absorbed the Sky Dragon King's power and converted it into his own strength, he would be on par with Black Tortoise and reach an ability index of 15,000 points. With the help of Yangsheng Base and Qingpu Base, Chaoyu Base was also rapidly being rebuilt. The current Chaoyu Base had formed a three-way power structure. The leader of the base was Lu Dehai, who was personally appointed by Zhang Yi. The second in command of the base was Chen Jingguan, a strategist who seemed to have always been suited to the role. Zhang Yi once jokingly called him a dog-headed military advisor. The third in command was Gao Tianwu, who led the School of Wu, an organization that had gained a firm foothold in the Chaoyu base. In the end of the world, as long as a person is powerful enough, sooner or later they will get their chance to rise to the top. Gao Tianwu's ability level was also Delta, and according to Zhang Yi's observations, his potential might even exceed Lu Dehai's. Therefore, Zhang Yi only placed him in the Chaoyu base for temporary training. If conditions were right in the future, Zhang Yi even planned to build a fourth base on the coastal border. Only with 2 coastal defense bases could the safety of the coastline be guaranteed. Just at this moment, Zhang Yi received his biggest surprise in recent times. His investment in Lu Karen had paid off handsomely. The Epsilon-level origin power had completely unlocked Lu Karen's talent. She rested at home for a whole month before she was able to completely digest that power. On this day, she ran over to Zhang Yi excitedly and held out her tightly clenched right hand to him. When she opened her fist, a piece of deformed gold appeared in her palm. "What is this?" Lu Karen smiled and said, "It's toilet paper. Brother, I can now change the structure of matter. Although I can only change a little, it's more than enough to strengthen the defenses of the shelter." Zhang Yi took the gold from her palm and looked at it carefully. Wasn't it the shape of a piece of toilet paper? Zhang Yi exclaimed in amazement, "Alchemy, a power that only exists in myths and legends, has actually appeared?" Zhang Yi was very happy that Lu Karen's ability had improved at just the right time, when he needed it most. "What are you going to do?" Zhang Yi asked Lu Karen happily. Lu Karen told Zhang Yi his plan. Changing the properties of matter requires enormous energy to break the original structure between particles. It's actually not an easy thing to do. However, if you only change the state and density of the particles to change their properties, it's very simple. With Lu Karen's current abilities, it was possible to upgrade and transform the shelter without destroying its original structure and add other substances to increase its strength. If one day, the entire shelter can be transformed into a substance that surpasses Edelman metal, then even Epsilon-level mutants won't be able to easily break through the shelter's defenses. Lu Karen said excitedly. "I already have a plan for this project. Although it will progress slowly, give me half a year and I will be able to reinforce the entire outer wall of the shelter." When Zhang Yi heard this, he was struck as if by lightning. After the apocalypse, he rarely regretted his decisions. But this time, he really regretted it. "If only I had left the source of God for you to use." Zhang Yi covered his forehead and said from the bottom of his heart. Science and technology were the primary productive forces, and he had really wasted the knowledge he had learned in history class. Perhaps it was because of the post-apocalypse that the appearance of mutants had made him somewhat dismissive of traditional military power and technology. He only thought that Flower was the main fighting force, so he prioritized strengthening him. "If I had known, I would have let you use the source of God." Maybe you would have taken us to the moon. Lu Karen scratched her head embarrassedly. Actually, it's not impossible. For Lu Karen, the ability to wield Divine Machinist had already turned her into a human super factory. As long as she had enough materials, there was nothing she couldn't make. Brother, give it to me. Lu Karen suddenly reached out to Zhang Yi. What is it? Zhang Yi asked. Your gun. Oh, and the bullets I gave you earlier. Bring them all here, I'll rework them for you. I guarantee it will increase their output efficiency. Lu Karen leaned close to Zhang Yi and whispered in his ear, and the light armor I said I would make is almost finished. Zhang Yi's eyes lit up. Okay, Karen, I'm starting to like you more and more. Lu Karen's little face turned red, and she pursed her lips without saying anything, but she put her hands behind her back, exposing her inner emotions. Brother Zhang Yi is the best. Zhang Yi handed everything to Lu Karen and asked her to help him rebuild it. After Lu Karen left, Zhang Yi was still sighing. Sure enough, crafting technology skills was the most useful in the late game. This little girl was a typical late-game hero. After all, at Zhang Yi's current level, it was becoming increasingly difficult to improve any further. However, he could learn from others and use the power of technology to greatly improve his overall strength. After a sleepless night of hard work, Lu Karen finally completed the upgrade of Zhang Yi's weapons and equipment. When she handed the weapons and ammunition to Zhang Yi, although she looked exhausted, she couldn't hide the excitement on her face. Nothing could excite a mechanic more than achieving a major technological breakthrough. Zhang Yi took the rebuilt weapon from Lu Karen's hand and was surprised to find that it was much lighter. The heavy sniper rifle, which weighed more than 10 kilograms, was now at least a third lighter. He knew his old friend inside out, and could tell the difference as soon as he picked it up. How did you do that? Zhang Yi asked in surprise. Lu Karen smoothed her short hair and said proudly, Edelman metal was known as the most durable metal material before the end of the world. But that doesn't mean it still is after the end of the world. I restructured its molecular structure and added new solidifying materials. Now it's lighter and more resilient. It's 30% lighter, but its resilience has doubled. So, big brother, even if your strength doubles in the future, you won't have to worry about your weapons not keeping up with your power. Zhang Yi's eyes lit up. This was great news for him. As everyone knew, as a space ability mutant, close combat had always been Zhang Yi's weak point. Although he had undergone long-term training, his physical fitness was no less than that of a soldier. However, holding a heavy sniper rifle weighing more than 10 kilograms for long periods of time was not easy for him. After all, most of the time, he had to hold this thing while fighting others. The same was true for the composite bow and sword in his hands. The lighter they were and the more durable they were, the more suitable they were for Zhang Yi to exert his strength. That's great, Karen, you're really amazing. Zhang Yi was overjoyed. If Lu Karen couldn't handle too much energy in a short period of time, he could even give her the entire Sky Dragon King's origin to increase her ability level. Among everyone in the shelter, Lu Karen's abilities were actually improving the fastest. As a mechanic, she always needed to use her abilities. Lu Karen's small face turned slightly red, and her heart was filled with joy. Being recognized by Zhang Yi was the happiest thing for her. I want to name this new material after you, brother. Let's call it E-metal. What do you think? Lu Karen's small face was full of anticipation. How could Zhang Yi refuse a young girl's kind offer? He smiled slightly and said, I was thinking that Lu would be a better name. But since you discovered this material, I'll follow your suggestion. But if your abilities continue to improve, you'll be able to discover even more powerful materials, right? Lu Karen blinked her eyes and said, in theory, that's right. She put her hands together and said expectantly, just like you, brother, after you became Epsilon, your power is like that of a god in mythology. If I can be like you one day, maybe I can really fly like a machine. All kinds of sci-fi scenes popped into Zhang Yi and Lu Karen's minds, and they couldn't help but yearn for it. That day will definitely come. Zhang Yi looked into Lu Karen's eyes and said very seriously, One day, I will find a source of God for you too. Your abilities will take a quantum leap. Lu Karen clenched her fists excitedly. Karen believes in you, big brother. After a long and tiring night, Lu Karen was exhausted. She returned to her room and fell into a deep sleep. Zhang Yi could see that this method of changing the structure of matter particles was very energy-consuming. In the future, transforming the entire shelter with Lu Karen would also be a huge project. But Zhang Yi had plenty of time. He was extremely grateful that he had brought Yang Xinxin and Lu Karen back with him when he went to Tianqing College all those years ago. These two girls were his treasures. In the days that followed, life in Tianhai City passed peacefully. Zhang Yi rarely received any news from Blizzard City. Because now, his purpose in life had changed. He was the foundation of the Jiangnan region, just like the Black Tortoise of the East Sea region. There was a lot going on in the Jiangnan region, and new incidents often arose that required the dispatch of investigation teams to deal with them. But Zhang Yi didn't need to worry about any of that. Meanwhile, the world was quietly changing every day. New mutants were still appearing, and geniuses were like stars, always appearing in the sky after the dark clouds passed. After Lu Dehai, mutants began to appear one after another. They no longer needed external stimuli to mutate, and many were even active mutants. Zhou Qir's explanation for this was that gamma rays caused mutations in human genes. This process could be fast or slow. Early mutants needed external stimuli to awaken. However, the later it was, the higher the degree of mutation, and when people reached a critical point, they would undergo spontaneous awakening. Zhang Yi called this the Great Mutation Era. While others were making progress, Zhang Yi was not idle. He had been training all along. Now, he had completely absorbed the origin of the Sky Dragon King, and his ability index had reached 15,000 points. If he encountered Cardalus again at this point, he would no longer be able to only dodge like he did before. In a head-on battle, as long as it wasn't at sea, he might even be able to kill Cardalus. However, no one knew about this except for him and his most trusted companions at the shelter. No one knew that he had absorbed the origin of an epsilon on that snowy night. At Zhang Yi's urging, the families of the shelter were also constantly improving their abilities. With the blessings of the fragments of the Source of God, the Origin Elves, and some of the island's mutants, everyone's supernatural abilities had greatly improved in a short period of time. Zhou Qir's ability index had now reached 7,000 points, and she could even use her abilities to enhance cell activity. If someone's limbs were severed, she could even help them regenerate their cells and repair themselves. Fatty Sue was a little behind, with a supernatural ability index of only 6,800 points. However, according to Zhang Yi, his supernatural abilities were not weak, and if he played his cards right, he could reach a strength of around 7,500 points. However, his combat awareness was still poor, and his fighting style was very sloppy, so his overall ability index had to be lowered. Uncle Yu was much stronger than him. As the second strongest man in the shelter, his ability index reached 7,100 points, which was only slightly higher than Zhou Qir. Uncle Yu was an enhancement-type mutant. His abilities were nothing special, and he wasn't very talented. Without the help of the Source of God fragments, he would have remained at the Gamma level. At least now, he was more than 10 times stronger than he had been at the beginning. He was able to play a very important role in the daily work of the shelter. As for Yang Xia, as a mutant with food-related abilities, her ability index had reached an astonishing 7,600 points. Her ability was to infuse food with supernatural powers and then use it as military rations. Because she liked cooking, she practiced diligently every day while cooking, which led to her ability index being higher than even Zhou Qir's. This was a huge blessing for Zhang Yi. Because so far, he only had 2 ways to restore his supernatural abilities: injecting energy serum and eating. Obviously, he preferred the latter. Because energy serum was very difficult to make, had a high consumption rate, and required injecting needles into the body. In comparison, Yang Xinxin's ability index continued to rise. She only increased to 7,000 points. Yang Xinxin was not particularly enthusiastic about supernatural abilities. In her opinion, her rules category abilities could only be used as a tool to catch others off guard. Compared to her brain, supernatural abilities were just an accessory. However, Lu Karen absorbed a small part of the Sky Dragon King's origin and the power of the origin elves she had absorbed earlier, causing her ability index to skyrocket to 9,000 points. After all, she was the focus of Zhang Yi's efforts. Lu Karen mastered the ability of alchemy and strengthened all the weapons in the shelter, then began to strengthen the entire shelter. Once she completed this, she would combine it with the large number of heavy weapons and equipment that Zhang Yi had obtained from Blizzard City. By then, the shelter would be transformed into a huge Tianhai fortress. Even if they encountered a normal Epsilon-level mutant, as long as their abilities weren't too special, they would be able to hold them off for a while. However, the person whose strength improved the fastest in the entire shelter was not Lu Karen. It was Liang Yu. As the top master martial artist in the Huashu Kingdom, her talent was so formidable that even Zhang Yi had to suppress her growth to prevent her from becoming uncontrollable. However, after absorbing some of the origin elves, her strength skyrocketed, quickly reaching 9,500 points. Of course, this was also because Zhang Yi had given her a deputy captain-level origin, Tsukamoto Nobunaga from Eclipse Moon. Furthermore, when distributing the origin elves, he had also given her special attention. But this speed was truly terrifying. Yang Xinxin explained this. This is not surprising. No matter what field you are in the beginning, the gap between geniuses and ordinary people may not be obvious. Perhaps geniuses are only slightly better than ordinary people. But the further you go, the more obvious the importance of talent becomes. Decades of martial arts training are her best foundation. So even if her supernatural abilities are only slightly improved, her combat effectiveness, or rather her ability index, will increase several times over. Zhang Yi agreed wholeheartedly. That's the advantage of having strong basic attributes. If this were a card game, Liang Yu would at least be an orange card, and one with full health at that. Zhang Yi was a little envious, but he had nothing to be jealous of. He couldn't endure the hardships that Liang Yu had endured. But someone seemed to have forgotten one thing. Compared to Cardalus and Black Tortoise, who had been carefully cultivated by the entire force, wasn't his rate of improvement far ahead? Apart from the shelter, the three major bases were also on alert due to the previous invasion by the Sky Dragon King. They began to actively prepare supplies, train diligently, and work hard to improve their ability to respond to disasters. Everything was prosperous. Even at the Qingpu base, a young couple gave birth to a baby despite the severe cold. This was a miracle of life and the hope for the continuation of human civilization. Xing Tian thought this was a joyous occasion and told Zhang Yi about it. After listening, Zhang Yi simply said to Xing Tian, "There's nothing wrong with them having children. For the sustainable development of the base, we always need the next generation. But be careful to control the population. Otherwise, if you let people have children freely, relying only on the supplies of your base, it will definitely cause you huge problems." Zhang Yi's reminder made Xing Tian wary. You're right. If everyone goes and has children, in 10 or 8 years, the children won't be able to grow up and work, and they'll just consume food for nothing. It seems that we must also control childbirth. Zhang Yi ended his call with Xing Tian and, after thinking for a moment, contacted Lu Dehai and Xiao Honglian. He asked them to pay attention to young couples or couples in the base and to control their birth rate. The environment was harsh, so even if they wanted to have children, they had to plan carefully to avoid placing too much of a burden on the base. As a woman, Xiao Honglian had already made arrangements and said to Zhang Yi with a smile, "Don't worry, our base has strict rules about this." Besides, at a time like this, not many people have the courage, time, and energy to have children. Lu Dehai also said to Zhang Yi, "Everyone is busy working every day and it's already difficult enough to take care of themselves. I'm afraid they won't have the energy to take care of children." "But you're right, boss. We have to think about the future. I'll emphasize this issue at the base." Zhang Yi nodded. he suddenly felt that society was recovering. Even though the weather was still cold, the few who had survived were still able to live strong lives. Just like the Eskimos, they had found a whole new way of life in the cold environment. Northern border of the Huashu Kingdom. The further north they went, the colder it got. Compared to Tianhai City in the south, most of the Xinjiang region was shrouded in bitter wind and snow all year round. Even the enhanced mutants, who were relatively resistant to the cold, rarely dared to brave the bitter cold of the north. The Qinling Mountains, a mountain range that stretches across the northern part of the Huashu Kingdom, were already covered in snow and winding across the vast land. The north wind howled, and the snowflakes were like swords. At this temperature, if the wind and snow blew on a person's face, it would quickly freeze the human tissue, causing pain worse than being cut by a knife.